Episode 2 starts with the display of a royal prince with golden hair seen preparing himself for something. The prince walks into a room where Lloyd is present, immersed in reading a book of magic. Lloyd greets him cheerfully, addressing him as Albert. As it turns out, Albert wants to invite Lloyd to practice magic together. In the arena, several targets are set for magical aiming. Albert demonstrates his fire magic prowess, casting flames from his fingertips and hitting the targets precisely. Everyone present is impressed by Albert's ability, including Lloyd. Grimm, nestled in Lloyd's lap, knows that Albert is the second prince of the Saloum Kingdom, skilled in both literature and martial arts. There's a rumor circulating that he will be the next king. Albert has the privilege to use facilities in the palace, and sometimes he invites Lloyd to practice, as he did today. Lloyd sees it as a golden opportunity since such chances to cast magic in the palace are rare. Albert encourages Lloyd to cast his magic in the provided arena. Lloyd advances, uninterested in the throne, as his desire is to learn and perfect magic. He intentionally redirects the trajectory of his fireball magic, hitting the edge of the target. Everyone applauds Lloyd for his action. One man there underestimates him for only hitting the edges of the targets. Lloyd pays no attention to him, instead focusing on analyzing his previous attacks. It seems only Albert recognizes Lloyd's talent. He lets Lloyd use the training arena while he takes a short break. Now, Lloyd is alone there, accompanied only by Grimm. Lloyd is very happy because there are many things he wants to do in the training arena. He even wants to try using the dual incantation technique once performed by Grimm. Grimm thinks it's impossible for a human to do. Without much thought, Lloyd extends his hand to Grimm, and Grimm is sucked into Lloyd's body. Grimm is surprised because he didn't expect Lloyd to merge with a demon like himself. Now Lloyd has Grimm's mouth and eyes on the palm of his hand. Lloyd asks Grimm to chant the Fireball Spirit Mantra. Grimm agrees. They chant the magic mantra simultaneously. However, Grimm is shocked and stops chanting because he feels something unusual. He feels surrounded by a tremendous amount of magic power and mantras. Grimm asks Lloyd for an explanation. Lloyd answers that what he just did was reciting a scroll of mantras, a technique to shorten the chanting time. By combining various types of mantras, he can shorten the chanting time until the magic rises. Just now, Lloyd chanted hundreds of mantras at once. Grimm is very surprised to hear that because until now, he has only been able to chant 2 or 3 mantras at once. Lloyd is disappointed and says it will only make him run out of time. Lloyd tried another approach. He concentrated and then attempted it. It turns out he could also speak through Grimm's mouth on his hand. Now, he could speak through any mouth he liked. Grimm couldn't do anything. He worried Lloyd would recite 2 high-level magic mantras. Indeed, that's what Lloyd did. He even recited 2 different magic mantras and techniques. He merged the 2 magic techniques. Grimm was both amazed and frightened because Lloyd possessed extraordinary magic techniques and power. The magic was too extreme. Grimm felt he couldn't just shoot it into the ground, as it would surely cause tremendous destruction. Eventually, the magic technique was shot into the sky. The extraordinary flashes of magic were even visible to the people in the city. The scene shifts to a room where Albert is seen lounging surrounded by several men and maids. One of the men asked why Albert seemed so attentive to Lloyd. Although he appeared quite skilled in magic techniques, he was still a child, after all. Albert immediately responded that the people around him didn't have sharp vision. Albert then explained that the fireball shot by Lloyd hit all the targets in the same pattern. It seemed Lloyd did it intentionally. According to Albert, that was something extraordinary. Albert also believed that someday Lloyd would surely become an important part of the kingdom he would lead. But in truth, Albert was humble, and he just wanted to be closer to his brother. One of the men among them looked out the window and thought that evening was approaching because the sky looked so dark. On the other hand, Grimm looked very shocked and frightened because the magic power released by Lloyd into the sky had torn a hole in it and darkened the sky. When he opened his eyes, Lloyd was also very surprised and hoped the sky would return to normal. Fortunately, the sky returned to its previous state shortly after. The next day, Grimm read a newspaper with a headline about the torn sky. Is it due to abnormal weather or a sign of disaster? Grimm showed the newspaper to Lloyd, who was also surprised to hear the news. When looking at another page of the newspaper, Lloyd found a news article about an adventurer group who had conquered a dungeon and obtained treasure in the form of gold and silver, as well as items containing magical power. Lloyd became very interested and decided to go conquer a dungeon too. But Grimm stopped him because it would surely cause a commotion if people found out Lloyd had left the palace for a long time. Lloyd didn't run out of ideas. He then used his magic to create a clone of himself. The clone looked very similar to the original Lloyd. It could even move just like the real one. However, the main issue was with the maid named Silpha. She would surely easily recognize that it was a cloned creature. Lloyd remembered some time ago when Silpha knew that Lloyd had grown by 0.7 centimeters just by looking at him. Grimm felt both scared and amazed when hearing the story, but it seemed Lloyd had a brilliant idea. Not long after, Lloyd was seen flying away from the palace. What actually happened was Lloyd inserted Grimm's spirit into the clone, and Grimm's body entered Lloyd's palm. They could still communicate with each other. The Lloyd clone looked very perfect. Grimm had evil intentions with the clone, but Lloyd, who was seeking a dungeon, said he was grateful to have a familiar like Grimm and entrusted everything to Grimm, who remained in the palace. Hearing this, Grimm was touched and abandoned his evil intentions. Lloyd, floating in the air, tried to locate a dungeon with his sight, but he couldn't find it. When looking down, Lloyd saw a woman being chased by a group of monsters, but unexpectedly, the woman turned around and attacked the monsters chasing her, defeating them all. Grimm, seeing this, guessed that the woman was a martial artist. Lloyd was also very impressed by the breathing technique performed by the woman. Lloyd then recounted that he had read in a book that in a certain land, there was a technique that used Kai energy. The technique utilized breathing circulated throughout the body to produce tremendous strength. Although they were quite far apart, the woman actually noticed Lloyd's presence. She asked Lloyd, but Lloyd didn't respond. Actually, Lloyd really wanted to meet the woman, but Grimm reminded him that with his current appearance, the woman would know that she had encountered the seventh prince of the Saloum Kingdom. Because there was no response from Lloyd, the woman assumed that Lloyd was an enemy, so she ran swiftly towards where Lloyd was hiding. Of course, Lloyd felt panicked, but luckily, when the woman reached where Lloyd was hiding, Lloyd had successfully used transformation magic and claimed to be a novice adventurer named Robert. Seeing the handsome Robert, the woman shyly introduced herself. Her name was Tao, a level B adventurer and a martial artist. Tao was very impressed by Lloyd's handsomeness. She felt very happy because after training for 18 years in the dojo, Tao, who had become an adventurer, actually longed for a romantic story. However, men only like delicate women like nuns, so it was difficult for her to find her ideal man. With firm determination, she intended to make Robert her boyfriend. Lloyd expressed that he actually wanted to explore the dungeon together. Of course, with enthusiasm, Tao immediately agreed. Finally, they arrived inside the dungeon. With her strength, Tao defeated the monsters in front of her. She wanted to show off her charm to Robert, but Robert was busy collecting shiny stones into his bag and ignored Tao. Tao revealed that she had been adventuring alone all this time because she hadn't found a good travel companion. Along the way, they lit a campfire and cooked food. Robert asked Tao about the Kai technique she had used earlier. Tao explained that Kai technique training began and ended with breathing, circulating breath throughout the body, resulting in tremendous overflowing strength. Tao also explained that it took long breathing exercises just to feel the Ki power. Unbeknownst to Tao, Robert had actually been practicing Kai breathing all along. Tao was surprised, and she also reminded that if not accustomed to the technique, there would be a burning sensation in the lungs. Robert, who had tried the technique, could feel that there was magical power and other energy within his body. He felt he could unlock and channel that power, turning it into a magical technique. Seeing Robert's keen interest in Kai, Tao decided to tell Robert more about Kai. Back at the palace, Grimm, who was currently inside Lloyd's clone body, felt amazed because Lloyd was not interested at all in his comfortable life as a prince. He was only interested in learning magic techniques. While Grimm was enjoying delicious cake, Silpha greeted him. Of course, Grimm was very surprised and afraid to see Silpha right in front of him. Back in the dungeon, Tao was seen teaching Robert about Kai techniques that he could use to defeat monsters. It turns out, the monster that Tao had just defeated was the dungeon boss, Grey Wolf. With the defeat of the dungeon boss, there was a treasure chest with an unlocked key. They approached the treasure chest. Robert was very curious about the contents of the chest. From his breath, Tao knew that Robert was already accustomed to Kai techniques. Robert could master it in a short time. Of course, Tao felt very happy to find someone talented. She had been dreaming of a romantic story between teacher and student. After examining the treasure chest carefully, Robert invited Tao to open it together. But as soon as it opened slightly, the chest released something dangerous, some kind of magic that could cleave through whatever it passed. From beneath the treasure chest emerged a terrifying creature, a skull-shaped being wearing a robe. Tao looked shocked and frightened. She understood that the monster before her now was a lich.